Hello everyone, this is Michael. I'm back with another use case around GitLab Duo Agentic Chat and custom rules, which are available on the GitLab Duo Agent platform. In today's session, we want to focus on C++ and how we can ensure that multi-platform support is available. So the application that you can see here is an IoT sensor which collects specific data and metrics. And the idea is that it runs on Linux, it runs on Unix, like Mac OS, and it also runs on Windows. And the project is in a relatively good shape, as you can see here. There's like best practices applied and certain other things, but there are some things that are still missing. And this has been captured in an issue, which, for example, says, well, we want to restructure the source code and also ensure multi-platform support. So the file structure is very plain, and multi-platform support is also not guaranteed. In order to do that, let's just remember this is issue number 3. And I have checked out or cloned the project locally, opened it up in JetBrains CLion, and we have that available here. Now, in order to help us modernize or help us fix the problems, we can certainly say, well, here's the issue, and then please implement that somehow. But we can also be more direct or more helpful to agentic chat and agents and the LLMs in the background, especially with what it should follow from a style guide perspective. And in order to do that, you can create custom rules in the directory, in the repository, which means you create a .gitlab directory, then inside a Duo directory, and inside the file chat-rules.md, which I have opened here in this editor view. You can use freeform text there to provide instructions on what the development style guide should look like, what are the rules that should be followed, and so on. But it's helpful to structure that with Markdown and ensure that there are headings, there are lists, so that the LLMs and the agents can kind of parse that and interpret that as helpful instruction to produce better outputs, whether it's generating code or suggestions or directly editing and creating files. For this specific style guide in C++, we want to make sure that the application runs on Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. And we also want to generate code that handles the specific operating system API differences. So there's the Windows Win32 API. There are different APIs on Windows available, which on the other side are different on Linux and Unix, certain abstractions, and it's also like dependent on the language standard if we would want to define that here as well. The specific style guides for using preprocessor macros for Windows and POSIX convention for Unix. And additionally to the C++ custom rules, we also want to configure GitLab CI/CD that cover the different platform support. So we do know there is some configuration already, but we really want to make sure that either problems are fixed now or don't happen again in the future. We also want to make sure that we're using advanced SAST and specific security scanning templates, which are also described here and linked here as code blocks examples, so that the agents can take care of that when executing. Now, how can we work on that? Remember, we were talking about GitLab issue number 3. And we can just go ahead and navigate on the right-hand side here into the GitLab Duo Agent platform beta section, open the chat view and say, well, please help me fix issue 3. And GitLab Duo Agentic Chat will then do a lookup what issue number 3 actually is. It also has included the user instructions here, so you can see it has the chat rules.md in AI in its context right now, and it attempts to read the directory structure, but also attempts to read the issue, or it already did that. So agents execute in parallel in the background and they get started with actions. You can also see here that a tool wants to be run, which is running a command, and it wants to create the required restructuring directories, so source, include, and tests. We can review that and click approve. And eventually or could also deny that and say, well, I don't want to do anything here. This was a short hiccup in approving, but this usually happens when you do a recording. It now says it will move the header file, which we have over here, into the newly created structure, and then work on the CPP file. So now we have the file path here, and it will then continue working on that. And by working, I mean it will move the files and also update them for multi-platform support when necessary. This can take a while, but essentially it's a helpful way that I don't need to do it on my own. So I could certainly go here and move things around in the UI, but there's also a way to get help from agents in that way. Only keep in mind, if the repository is huge, and this is a small repository now, you might find better instructions and say, well, only focus on specific renamings, or propose a path or plan how to execute that, and then let me review that, which is something that you can, for example, use or plan in the flow section here with Agentic GitLab agent to agent platform, in order to plan for longer term restructuring and modernization. But for this example, it's fine to really use, like in a small or mid-sized repository, to ask agents to make the changes and also move things around. It also came to the idea, this was not really planned, to create tests, which actually it recognized we have a test file here, so it ensures that the structure in the tests directory is also intact. And I like to record these demos because you cannot really predict what AI and agents will do, and it's always interesting to figure out how to provide the best instructions to it and then see what happens. With custom rules or defining the style guide, it's the same. These style guides didn't happen in a day. This was actually development over the last couple of weeks or days, to figure out which prompts work best. You can use them as an example for your own environments, but I would encourage you to test them and see what works best. What other requirements or development style guides does your company or your open source project have? And then make sure that you document and use these specific custom rules in your environment with GitLab Duo agent platform, and then be able to benefit from that. On the right hand side, we can see the process or progress is made with the CMake list.txt file, which is the build platform for C++ CMake in this project, and then it goes ahead and updates the CI/CD configuration file, which also doesn't have the multi-platform configuration. It actually added CMake build parallel level. It didn't do that in my other tests before. It creates a Windows build template, and what other changes do we have here? Oh yeah, it actually added a Windows build job for Microsoft Visual Studio. So this is the Microsoft Visual Studio compiler, MSVC, and basically refers to setting up the environment. So, I mean, if you want to use a different compiler and different defaults, you can also create a custom rule to instruct that, or say, always look into the existing configuration for that project, and then use that. So basically pointing the custom rules to a specific file. Now we are getting asked again, we want to actually remove files in the main directory. So it has moved the files already. Let's see. Curious why I'm not seeing. Oh no, it's not this node. I don't want to see the structure. I want to see the project. And for some reason this sometimes doesn't update. Not sure why. Let's see. No, this is not what I'm looking for right now. Before I want to approve that, I actually want to see what happened here. Maybe I need to reload the project. Yes, I need to reload the CMake project. So I don't know, maybe it's a bug that I'm currently hitting, but it's not updating the file structure when changes are being made. So we can see there is the newly created files here, or like the moved files, and then they're opening up here. So okay, let's go ahead and approve that so that we can actually delete that. And for some reason it didn't work. My click didn't work, but I clicked again and then it worked. Now it reads the CMake presets JSON file, which is here, and I'm not sure why I have the structure here now. Let's remove that. The CMake presets file configures CMake for like default configuration, because you can create debug binary objects that have debug symbols inside, even with address sanitizer, thread sanitizer, things I used many years ago. And there's also a configuration for Windows, Microsoft Visual Studio for the compiler, and so on. So it uses that as a context, and also looks inside and ensures it's updated for the platform support. It's now updating the readme.md, and I do know the recording gets longer when you want to show everything. And I also want to show it raw, so if you want to skip over the specific parts, that's totally fine. But you get the full experience by watching what GitLab Duo Agentic Chat is doing. It has updated everything, and now it wants us to run a command, which is CMake, and using the preset debug. Let's see what it does. By doing so, actually it creates, or it updates the CMake build configuration. So it's kind of using a cache file here, and by, again, didn't click properly, it will update the CMake cache here, so it supports all the and now it checked if the restructuring is complete by getting a file directory tree. So it's capable of, it knows that all the changes have been applied. And now it does, what does it now? This is a long output. It wants to create an issue node. So yeah, we asked issue number 3, and it will add a comment to that issue in the GitLab project. Okay, let's approve that. And it has added a new comment, which we will check out in a bit. Now it's streaming us the changes it made, and it follows best practices. It attempted to use the changes, or like the keep everything in place what already was there, but we should be able to see the changes. And I mean, in order to prove that, we can also just open up a terminal just clear the terminal quickly and then run git status manually, so you can actually see. We can actually add source tests. We can also do that. We can also ask Agentic Chat for that, but I just want to do it quickly now, and then create a branch and say maintenance multi-platform support, and then add a commit and say ensure multi-platform support. Because whenever we look at the diff now, we can see the specific changes here as well. I will create a merge request in a bit. For now, we want to check the changes or the updates it made to prove that the GitLab issue was updated. And as you can see here, it's using my identity in that regard, because I'm authenticated in the JetBrains GitLab Duo plugin configuration against the GitLab server, which in this case is gitlab.com. But this will also work on GitLab self-managed when you have GitLab Duo. Here we can see the issue resolution. There's file restructuring, which was before and after, which is great. So you can actually see what the changes are, and added platform-specific code for different platforms. Used the preprocessor macros, updated the CI/CD platform, enhanced the CMake configuration, added comprehensive testing, and even updated the documentation. So let's quickly make this happen. And I mean, I'm more familiar with the terminal, so I always use git push, and I really like the neat trick in GitLab that you can just click on that and then it will open up the merge request view. We can actually use another GitLab Duo feature, which is summarize code changes, because I'm typically, or it takes quite some time to write the summary, and I really like the way that I can get access to a summary of what are the changes here. Yeah, and we can actually inspect all the changes it made here. So we can see it really cleaned up the structure, and the next steps are like, I can either assign a review and ask GitLab Duo for review, for example, or continue with my own workflows. So now that I've triggered GitLab Duo on this merge request, it will certainly be interesting if it finds something. So agents working together and AI working together. But yeah, we'll link the merge request in the description. I'd actually found something else which we didn't define yet. New line. That's actually okay. This is something, for example, which we could immediately add to the custom rules and say, well, add a new line into that. It's a minor thing that's currently going on. I think the code style is also broken because we are not following a specific code style in our custom rules yet. But this is an asynchronous exercise for you to figure out, or to like learn now. Add custom rules for the new line feedback, add custom rules for the specific Clang format to follow, and then work with GitLab Duo, Agentic Chat, and the custom rules. I hope this was helpful. It's a long recording, but certainly I think it's helpful to see what I did and how it works in full. The repository is public already. I will also create, or we will also publish a blog post, which I will link in the video description after it gets published. Until then, have a great day wherever you are, and see you next time. Bye bye.